Mr. Malte Kaufmann. He is currently a PhD student at the University of Economics in Bucharest in Romania, and he'll be giving a brief presentation of his paper titled The Impact of Corporate Social Responsibility on Business Performance. Can it be measured, and if so, how? Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Malte Kaufmann. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm really happy and glad to be here for this conference. I enjoyed very much the interaction and the diversity also of the different program parts. We had speeches, lectures, we had discussions so far, and cultural programs, music, good food, and nice coffee breaks. And I really gained a lot during this conference. I come from the economics field. Currently, I'm a PhD student, and at the same time, I'm a businessman. I'm running a real estate agency in Heidelberg, in the south of Germany. And on the side, I do this PhD research program with the University of Bucharest. The ambassador yesterday is also a graduate of ASE, Academie de Studii Economice in Bucharest. And that's another cultural bridge, and I really enjoy this. Traveling back and forth, going to conferences, and exchanging ideas. I think that's very important for nations, that we have this inter-exchange of students also in the scientific field. I'm glad that you invited some economists for this conference as well. Dr. Witte is representing the economics field. I noticed in the past few days that almost every one of the ambassadors from different countries and developing regions also mentioned the importance of economics. So if we attract small and medium-sized enterprises in countries that need to develop, if we have business ties, those countries really can get ahead, and it's a win-win situation. So we need to pay a lot of attention to economical cooperation as well. My title, my research focuses on the impact of corporate social responsibility. The slide is from Dr. Witte, so don't be confused. That's the next topic. I'm sure that the paper will be presented online on the ICD webpage as well. And it's dealing with the impact of corporate social responsibility on business performance. Can it be measured, and if so, how? Corporate social responsibility is not a new idea. It has been there for decades, centuries, millennia. Companies were always, especially when we are dealing with small, medium-sized enterprises, companies that are owned and run by proprietors. They've always been engaged in caring for their workers, caring for the environment, caring for social aspects as well. But in the past few years, I see we have really begun to make it a scientific issue to describe the different aspects of it, and also to make it more systematically. The European Union has launched a program already about 10 to 12 years ago, but last year the EU renewed its strategy towards corporate social responsibility, and the aim is really for the nations of the EU to have their own national agendas to promote corporate social responsibility, to make it known, to have more companies engaged in CSR programs, and there's even a push towards making CSR measurements in different companies a mandatory requirement. At the moment in Germany, the Chamber of Commerce tries to make public what is done already by small, medium-sized enterprises. Small companies that support non-profit organizations in their local framework, how they support also the exchange with people that are not so fortunate, small businesses that care for their workers, that care for environment, that participate in, for example, recently I was at a meeting at SAP in Walldorf, a big multinational company. What they do every year is they decorate Christmas trees in their facilities. SAP pays for all the expenses. The workers come together, they decorate the trees, and then they deliver them to people in the neighborhood that are in need, like disabled people, older people, and so on. That's just one small aspect, and they have a huge strategy also behind those CSR activities. Now, the question is, can the success or the impact be measured? Can a company see if CSR also profits them in their business performance measurement? It depends on what time frame you look at. If you just look at a short period, if you just look, at, let's say, 1 year, you do some CSR measures, some programs, and want to see if the profits of the company rise within 1 year, a short time period, you probably will not be able to measure any impact. But if you go on and also take into consideration the long-term survival of a company, the long-term success, then we get a different picture. Because if you evaluate the performance of a company over a longer period of time, then soft factors need to be taken into account, like soft factors like customer satisfaction, the image of the company in society, soft factors like worker satisfaction. So what we really need to do is we need to rethink the way we measure the success or the profit of a company. And during the financial crisis, we, as a society, have seen that it's not very good if managers are paid just for short-term profits. So we need to get away from looking at shareholder value, turnover, overall turnover, profits in the short term, towards a sustainable view of the success of a company. But what model should you use? In Europe, there has been a system that has been developed over the last 20 to 30 years called the European Foundation of Quality Management evaluation system. Who of you have ever heard of the EFQM model? Dr. Witte, of course, but none of you. Well, please read the paper. There's also a short introduction to the EFQM model. This is really a model that takes into account not only short-term aspects, but also those soft factors that I was talking about. So if you use the EFQM model, it comes from the quality side, based on a total quality assessment of a company. If you take models like this, and especially the EFQM model, which comes from businesses, was developed by businesses, then you can really start thinking about how can we measure CSR activities, and it's possible. It is possible to for example, use questionnaires. If you ask the workers, have you heard of this CSR activity in your company? What do you think about it? Does it make you happier to work for this company? Do you regard your company more highly if the company is engaged in these kinds of activities? And you can measure that, and you have then an indirect approach to looking at the success of those programs. If the stakeholder satisfaction levels rise, the stakeholders are all the groups that have interest in the company, the customers, the suppliers, the loaners, and so on, debtors, the workers. If you then ask by means of questionnaires, for example, have you heard of this program? What do you think about it? Does it profit your different aspect towards the company? And then you can see this indirect approach and indirect success of CSR for the company. Well, that's just a very short presentation of a pretty long paper, but you're welcome to read it online. And again, the answer is yes, the impact of CSR can be measured, and you need to take an indirect approach to do so. Well, I would like to give you a few minutes for some questions, if that is possible.
Okay, would anyone like to pose a brief question or make a comment? Okay, please. If you could stand as always.
Thank you. My name is Gaurekwe, but you can call me Gigi. I come from Botswana. It's south of Africa, not South Africa. My question is, you talked about, this new debates are about making CSI or CSR mandatory for organizations. But I thought you were going to go into, elaborating on your views on that, because I'm particularly interested in that. There have been a lot of arguments about whether it should be made mandatory or not. And organizations have been arguing that, we cannot be forced to go into CSR because we are already employing people, we're already paying salaries, we're already paying taxes. So why should you force us into? So I'm interested just on your views on that.
Well, thank you very much. That's a very good question. I'm also an elected member of the governing body of the Chamber of Commerce, Rhein-Neckar, which represents 75,000 companies, big companies like Heidelberg Printing Press, Heidelberg Cement, SAP, but also lots of small companies like mine. And the Chamber of Commerce in Germany is at the moment very skeptical about making such mandatory requirements. Because as I said, there's already a lot of programs going on, especially in small, medium-sized enterprises. So what we have done now in the past year is we conducted business CSR breakfasts every month where we come together, meet at a certain company. I mentioned SAP, and so we move from one company to the next each month, invite the press, invite as many companies as possible. Then we talk about the programs that are being done. We talk about strategies, we ask questions, we contribute. Every businessman in the room tells about their experiences. And so what we find is that there is a lot of things going on at the moment. Many of these small companies don't even know the name CSR. They have their own German equivalent, So we want to make known that already a lot is being done, and it's getting better and better. Business people are talking about it because in society there is a demand. Customers demand for it. So I think this customer demand approach is much better than if some bureaucratic organization makes all these mandatory requirements. We already have so much bureaucracy in the European Union and in particular in Germany. Why should we have another burden on these companies? So we are at the moment very skeptical, and at the moment I don't know a lot about other countries in the EU. I have to admit I can only speak from the German side. But here it's seen from the business field rather skeptical.
We do actually need to move to the next presentation, but I really appreciated that lecture, and if we could all please express our gratitude for Malte. Thank you.